Alright, hey guys, what's going on? Super late right now, so there's probably not going to be a whole lot of editing. I'm pretty tired, so don't expect this to be like fantastic by any means. I have a couple of notes from the Clippers Mavericks game. I'm honestly just going to run through them. They're kind of jumbled up, so if it feels like I'm skipping around, I kind of am. But I'm going to be honest, I just finished up this game. I was very disappointed in the Clippers. It was basically a must-win game. They just got swept on their own home court to start this series. This was really a great position for the Clippers, and now it's looking like it's a great position for the Mavericks because this next series that they play is going to be the winner of the Jazz Grizzlies series. And honestly, I don't know if either of those teams, neither team is invulnerable, especially the Clippers and Mavericks. I think both of those teams have a really great shot at beating either the Jazz or the Grizzlies, whoever comes out of that series. So Clippers have two players getting paid really big money, two players that are arguably some of the best in their position. But are they really? I don't know. After watching tonight, it's hard for me to say they are. So I really liked how PG and Kawhi Leonard were aggressive early on. They had 26 of the Clippers' 33 points in the first quarter. I liked that a lot. One thing I noticed in the first quarter, and this didn't really continue throughout the game, this was probably the only defensive adjustment the Clippers made all night. It didn't even help. Luka was just too big for Paul George. He just kept running through him. Same with Patrick Beverley. They still, for some reason, switched on every single pick. Never doubled, and when they did double, they didn't really double. They just run up to him instead of being aggressive and really getting in his grill. So wide open passes. There's a way to double team. If you watch how the Lakers double team Devin Booker, if you watch some of these other guys get doubled, guys are running at them. It's not just, we're going to jog up here and shuffle our feet so that you have a lot of time to think. Players get doubled hard, and that is not at all what the Clippers did. They didn't know what they were doing. Half the game, they switched the pick and rolls. Half the game, they just tried to go under screens for some reason. The Mavericks shot an incredible percentage from three, and they continued to go under screens when they didn't switch. It was just, the Clippers are awful. They're the worst good team I've ever seen. I have zero confidence in them going down the stretch. They've lost both games in the fourth quarter. I mean, they are just awful. They have stretches in the game where they are legitimately the worst offensive team I've ever seen. They had a stretch in the third quarter where they could not score to save their lives, and they have Kawhi Leonard and Paul George on the court. It makes no sense to me, and the issue is they don't pass, and they just take isolation threes or isolation mid-ranges. Either get to the basket or pass the ball around. This is why this team was so good in the regular season. They shoot an incredibly high percentage from three because they pass the ball. Not everything is about isolating. And that was one issue, I guess, that kind of killed them, is that Paul George and Kawhi were super aggressive, but they didn't get any other players involved. And you cannot win games if it's a two-player team and those two players only score off of isolation plays. Marcus Morris had a couple big threes down the stretch, but he's about the only guy that really made any sort of impact down the stretch off the bench. Maybe Terrence Mann a little bit. But it was mostly just Kawhi Leonard and Paul George taking very ill-advised pull-up threes in isolation. Centers for both teams are pretty big holes. They're pretty bad on defense. Zubac, I don't know why they kept switching. He guarded Luka, it felt like, for half of the first half, which was just dumb. I don't know why Kawhi Leonard has the inability to go over a screen. He either would go under it and leave them wide open for three, or he would be like, no, you've got him, Zubac, because you're going to be able to defend Luka better than I will. Really, really bad performance from Kawhi Leonard on the defensive end. This was the worst I have ever seen him play defensively, and he is not a bad defender at all. So it was more between the ears for him tonight, honestly. He's a fine defender. He still had great instincts, but he potentially made I don't even know how to explain how bad he was on defense. He did not go over a single screen. It is the playoffs. You're down 0-1 on your home court, and you're not following the other team's best player. You are the best defender on your team. You're the only person that is done a decent job on Luka, and you're handing him off to Patrick Beverley, who is significantly smaller than Luka and has gotten killed every single time. You're handing him off to Zubac, who's gotten killed every single time. It just doesn't make sense. It looks like Kawhi doesn't even care on defense. And then in the second half on offense, Kawhi disappeared too. Honestly, Luka played good defense. I didn't see that coming. Never would have thought in this series I would be, wow, Luka Doncic played incredible defense and Kawhi Leonard was awful on defense. That is the last thing I thought I was going to say. Thought it was going to be reversed for sure, but Luka used the size really well, and I think there was one foul on Luka. I was like, that's an offensive foul on Kawhi. Luka can't do anything about that. Like, the worst thing that Luka did was foul Kawhi Leonard that wasn't even a foul on him. Like, his size and just poise in general, he wasn't falling for pump fakes. Incredible job by Luka defensively. Maxi Kleber did a solid job too. The Mavericks really clamped down after that first half. They made adjustments clearly to guard Kawhi Leonard. The Clippers didn't do a single thing to adjust outside of, you know what, Paul George doesn't have to guard Luka anymore. At least Paul George would try to go over screens. But their defense is atrocious. They made no adjustments. They basically were like, the Mavericks are shooting a great percentage right now. There's no way they keep that up. And they just left them wide open for jump shots. Was basically how the game went. And when they didn't leave them wide open for jump shots, they left wide open lanes. Or they just basically have Luka on a smaller guy. And it's not like Luka's the only guy scoring either. Guys had incredible games. Tim Hardaway Jr. in particular was incredible from the three-point line. Once again, I don't know if there was a single contested three that he hit. Every single one of them was wide open. Porzingis still doesn't know how to be a post player, but that doesn't seem to matter at all. He basically hit a three-pointer off the back iron 30 feet in the air, and it somehow went in. I mean, it was just one of those nights for the Mavericks, and it really should have been like a 15, 20-point game if the Mavericks made their free throws. I think they might have shot by like below 50% on free throws, which was bizarre because they were shooting a higher percent from like the field and from three than they were the free throw line. But the Clippers are bad. They the dry stretches really kill them. In the third quarter, honestly, this was the best offensive game ever in the first half. The first half of this game was incredible. There was nothing either team could do. I know I've been harsh on the Clippers' defense. It was awful in the first half. It was awful in the second half. But some of the shots that Luka was making were incredible. That's the dry stretches for the Clippers have been consistent over the last 2 years. They don't look like they ever play together. They never pass the ball down the stretch. The Clippers can't defend a pick and roll. They switch or double. They're confused. They have no idea what's going on. When they do double, they don't actually double. They like half double the guy. They're like half in, half out. They don't know what they're doing. It's like Ty Lue said, do one or the other and y'all figure it out when you get there. It makes no sense to me. They made zero adjustments, and the adjustments, it made no sense. Let's see what else I have here. Luka, great defense on Kawhi down the stretch. Yeah, that was true. Kawhi, opposite, really, really bad defense on Luka down the stretch. And it's not even like Kawhi was really playing defense. He would just hand him off to Patrick Beverley or Zubac. Like, he would be the lightest screens I've ever seen, and he'd just be like, nah, you got him. It makes no sense to me. Clippers role players aren't involved at all. They never get shots. There's way too much isolation play on this team, especially in big moments. God dang it. I'm trying to read my notes here. I'm just bulleting through it. I'm really tired, frustrated with Clippers, as you guys can tell. I was really hoping for a good series here. I mean, granted, this was a great game, but I would have liked to see some more fight from the Clippers. It's just like they don't care at the end of games almost. And even tonight, it didn't look like they didn't care. It just looked like they weren't smart. Like, they didn't know what was going on. Like, they didn't know the game plan. The Clippers settled in the fourth quarter. PG took a really bad three against Porzingis. Porzingis was awful on defense the entire night. He totally could have just driven and had a wide open layup or dunk, although he did miss a dunk earlier in the game, so I guess Pandemic P is back. The next possession for the Clippers, Kawhi bricks a wide open three. Although it wasn't wide open, it was heavily contested in isolation once again. Let's see what else. Oh yeah, Kawhi runs away from Luka. I've talked about that a lot. Luka didn't make the same mistake down the stretch. He actually he drove and made a layup twice in a row, which was something neither Clippers player was able to do. Luka even passed a little bit, which would have been great to see from either Kawhi or Paul George. But basically, I came out of this game thinking Kawhi is not a good defender. At least tonight he wasn't. He's great individually. You can't isolate against him, but if you set any sort of screen, he has no clue what he is doing. And I don't know if that's a lack of communication with the coach, if he just doesn't care, if he thinks that his defensive IQ is somewhat higher than whoever's telling him what to. The whole Clippers team looked confused. They had no idea if they were switching, staying, doubling. It was awful. It was a terrible performance by them defensively. It was honestly probably the worst defensive game I've ever seen, and I watch the Pelicans pretty often. I basically watched every Pelicans game, so I've seen bad defense, especially in fourth quarters, and the Clippers were somehow worse. Paul George had one great defensive play at the end of the game. He was the only player on the Clippers that actually doubled at one point. He actually ran up and got a steal. He got in Luka's airspace. He wasn't messing around on the double team. Literally, the next possession down, Paul George doubles again. He doesn't get within 5 feet of Luka. He shuffles his feet towards him and is social distancing from him, and it leads to a wide open Porzingis dunk. This team doesn't know what they're doing on defense. They really don't. They have zero chemistry. It looks like they haven't been coached. And that may not even be on the coach. That may be on the players who are telling them one thing and the coach is telling them. I don't know how you have that bad of miscommunication late in the fourth quarter of games. It honestly looked like Paul George was like, I think I'll double right now. It doesn't make any sense to me. There's no game plan. The Mavericks clearly had a game plan. They executed it. Luka on Kawhi was fantastic. He didn't fall for the pump fakes. He held his ground. Luka Doncic is the best player in this series. I may be overreacting, but I honestly don't really care. It's really late, and I feel like I kind of have the right to overreact here. But I've talked for way too long, basically said the same stuff. Could have done this in 5 minutes. But yeah, thanks so much for watching, and peace.